Hey, so guess what we're going to talk about today?
Stress.
Stress. Yeah. And it's not just, I mean, obviously, Dr. Crystal, we're in a weird time right now, but there's obviously, I mean, this is something that impacts us all the time, right? And I was thinking to myself actually this morning that this is like one of the universal topics, if you think about it, right? Like we talk about heart disease sometimes. Well, not everybody has heart disease, right?
That's
You
true.
talk about you
That's
talk
true.
about cancer sometimes. Not everybody has cancer. And I get, but stress, specifically chronic stress and how it affects our lives. I'm pretty sure, am I safe to say just about everybody?
For the most part, I mean, you do find groups or subsets of people who have found ways to manage their stress much better. Like I
Yeah.
think about the monks
Yeah.
who.
But they're still dealing with stress. That's why they
That
came
is
up with those
true.
strategies.
Very true. They've just found better ways to make themselves resilient.
Yeah. Yeah. So stress. Here's what we're going to do today. Everybody, thank you for joining.
Yes.
Obviously, we're still in lockdown right now. So Robson is running the show from his home. Hannah is not with us. Or is Hannah with us, Robson? I don't know. But
No, Hannah's not with
yeah,
us.
so our normal group's not here, but you can still leave questions and stuff like that.
Yes.
Holly or Brittany, they are watching. They can answer. They can let us know what you guys are saying. And so the gang's kind of here, right?
We're here. You know what? They are here in spirit.
Yes, in spirit. So we're all doing our best here. As a matter of fact, right before we started, I stressed out Crystal.
Yes, you did. And so he always plays jokes on me. And so we're sitting here and I'm, trying to get everything set up perfectly. And then he says, "Why are your kids back there? There shouldn't be kids." And I'm like, "Oh my God." Like 10 minutes ago, the kids were yelling, screaming, upset. It's nap time. They don't want to take a nap. They nap together, but today they wanted to nap in my son's room where they normally nap in my daughter's room. And this just created a mega situation 10 minutes before it was time to go live. And I said, "You all need to go to sleep. You have to take a nap."
I'm about to teach people how to deal with stress, and I'm not dealing with it good right now.
I know, but it's a work in progress.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great way to say it. When we're dealing with stressors in our lives, we all, as we get older, we learn how to deal with things. We figure out strategies that work for us, strategies that may not work for us. So I think that's actually, I think we're all a work in progress, right? When it comes to stress. So here's what we're going to do for everyone joining us today. We're going to look first at what really is the stress response. And because it's important to remember that you have to have a stress response.
Oh, it's a survival mechanism. I think that's one thing that will help it. It helped me to kind of understand some of the negative implications of stress. If you understand what happens in the body, the physiological processes that occur during the normal stress response, then you start connecting that to chronic stress.
Well, wait, you're going into my introduction. You're like taking over my introduction right now.
I got excited. You know that.
No, I feel a little stressed.
Oh no, Dr. Mike, it's okay. All is well.
So we're gonna let's break it down to what is that stress response.
Yes.
And then how does that become chronic, and what does that mean, and what are those health consequences?
Yes.
Chronic stress. And then, of course, some of the natural ingredients or nutrients that have solid research, right? That can help us deal with stress better and respond better to stressors. And again, and I say it that way because, at Life Extension, I know Dr. Crystal will back me up on this. Everything we say and everything we do is backed up by published, peer-reviewed articles, right?
I mean, that is the mandate.
Yeah.
That's how we started, and that is, what we bring to everyone, especially the dietary supplement industry. We want to make sure that people can trust the dietary supplements, and they understand that there's research backing it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, because I get that question, or I get random questions a lot from my family and friends. Hey, I've heard this works for anxiety. I've heard this works for depression. I've heard this works for heart disease, whatever it is. Right. And in many cases, my response to that, Dr. Crystal, is, well, that's great. That sounds good. But let's look at the research. Right. Before I'm going to recommend or suggest anything to anybody, I got to make sure that I'm confident that what I'm saying is right, or at least based on the current research and science is right.
100%.
Yeah. So again, everything we do here and everything we do at Life Extension is evidence-based supplementation. So let's talk stress in general, right? You can't. The stress response is a survival thing, right? You can't live without having that fight or flight stressor, right?
Right.
So I thought, Dr. Crystal, you could run us through the basic physiology that occurs when a stressor hits.
Right. Well, it all starts with what we call the HPA axis, and it's the hypothalamus.
Why did I know you were going to start with
You
that?
have to start there. That's where it all begins. And so, yes, you're right. The stress response is preparing the body to escape danger. And so it starts in the brain, the hypothalamus, the pituitary. This is where, the threat, the impending threat, or the real threat, if you are like my brother, he goes fishing. If you hook a shark, which maybe he's not too threatened, but if you hook a gator, then maybe you are threatened a little bit.
You're so from Florida. Hook a gator. I mean, what? People are watching all over the world. They don't hook gators, and if you do,
if you see a gator in your backyard, which is very possible,
if your brother is hooking gators, maybe he needs to look at his fishing technique a little bit. But I use this example.
Okay,
10,000. 15,000 years ago, when humans were more scavengers, we were in the prairies trying to find food. There was a real threat of being eaten by a lion, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, so when you see that lion, there's this physiological response that starts in the brain and releases these certain hormones that allow you to react and get out of there. And that's the acute stress survival thing, right?
Right. And some examples of that is you have, dilation of the bronchioles, you have an increased heart rate, increased blood pressure. This is all kind of helping the body to be able to run faster.
Yeah.
The liver starts releasing glucose, and this is kind of releasing energy.
Yeah.
Digestion stops. You don't need to digest food if you're trying to, run away from a lion. You even see a decrease in the reproductive. All of these are a part of that fight or flight. The body is releasing reserves in order for you to fight a bear.
Yeah. So you're going to go with bear. I went with lion. See how she changes everything? She always has to one-up me a little bit. I've never seen a lion actually, but I've seen bears up close when I don't know if you know this, Dr. Crystal. I camped out in Alaska for a full month. It's called the Inside Passage near Juneau. I saw bears, wolves, you name it. And sometimes that fight or flight kicked in. So,
wow.
So that's great. So your body revs up so you can get out or fire, whatever you have to do to survive. But then when the stressor is gone, eventually, hopefully the lion leaves, or in your case, the bear leaves, and things come down, right?
Yes.
So it's kind of like it peaks and it drops and it peaks and it drops.
Right. So this HPA axis that we talked about, the hypothalamus, the pituitary, and then the adrenal glands, where you have, the release of the stress hormone, cortisol, that kind of keeps everything in a state of homeostasis. So you have that response, and then calms down, and everything is back to normal.
Yeah. So bringing it then into more today's world, you know, not 15,000 years ago, like today.
Right.
I'm pretty sure, you know, when you're out walking in your neighborhood, you have a nice neighborhood. I've seen it. It's nice. You don't have bears.
No bears.
There's no bears. I don't have lions over here, but
no gators in my neighborhood either.
That's funny. Anyways, but what we so those acute things aren't maybe there anymore. But what we do have as stressors in our lives are things that are more constant. Traffic, jobs, kids. I mean, like things have changed, right? It's so we're not. So maybe things aren't so like rev up, calm down. It's almost like we're always revved up today.
Right. So it's this chronic stress that we all deal with, and more so now than ever before. You know, feelings of loneliness, self-isolation, you know, being in quarantine, illnesses, all of those things just really compound the everyday stressors, and many people are struggling more so than ever before. And you know, it's a big problem.
Yeah. And so instead of the pattern of there's a stressor, things raise up and you fight it, you run away, whatever it is you do to survive, and then you calm down. Instead, in the world today, there's like a constant level of stressor, right? And so that does something to our health. It does something to us physically and mentally, even you can go and say spiritually, wherever you want to go with that. It does affect us on multiple levels when we don't have the normal response, which is to kick in and turn off, right?
That's true. And you can see the effects of stress, how they can affect multiple body systems. You can see this with the cardiovascular system, you know, high blood pressure. You don't know why. You know, most people are dealing with high blood pressure and their doctors can't figure out why. And it's usually due to, you know, maybe chronic stress. High blood sugar. You don't know why. You can't get your blood sugar under control. You know, when you start thinking about, you know, that acute stress response, now you have a situation where, yes, the body is, you know, kind of releasing sugar when it shouldn't, or making sugar, you know, from the liver when it shouldn't. So those are things that you see. You see sleep issues, circadian rhythm issues.
Well, let's back up just for a sec, because you did mention the HPA connection access, right? You want to explain that a little bit more? What is the H? What is the P? What is the A? And what do we mean? Like, what do we mean by that? Just so we're all clear. And by the way, there's a person watching right now. Her name is Barbara Moore.
That's my mom.
I knew it.
Hi, Mom. Yes, and she commented. She's right. Yes, today's world, like the fear of contacting the virus.
Yes.
Mom, thanks for watching. I love you.
Hi, Mom. We're so glad to have you. Your daughter's doing a great job.
She helps me manage my stress.
Yeah, well, your daughter stresses me out. That's another story, though. Okay, so let's go back to HPA. Explain that a little bit more before we go on to the consequences.
Yeah, so the hypothalamus, it releases a hormone called corticotropin releasing hormone that sends a message to the pituitary, and the pituitary produces adrenocorticotropic hormone, ACTH. And then that in turn communicates with the adrenal glands, and you get hormones like cortisol, which we're very familiar with, with cortisol. You also have DHEA that is produced during this response. But then you also have a response that releases adrenaline, noradrenaline, also known as epinephrine or norepinephrine. These are the fight or flight kind of hormone neurotransmitters. And these are involved with just helping to give you energy, to run away from the bear or tiger. But
thanks for throwing my tiger in there. Appreciate it.
I know I had to throw in the tiger, but this is kind of that response. And when and you have what we called a reverse feedback loop, where once the stress is over, then it kind of feeds back to the brain, and then you see a decrease in those stress hormones. So when we look at chronic stress, you're not getting that reverse response to tell the brain it's time to stop releasing corticotropin releasing hormone, and to tell the pituitary to stop releasing, its hormones.
Yeah. So that's so it's like in chronic stress, when we're dealing with viruses, we're dealing with lockdown, we're dealing with kids, homework. I mean, some of the like memes I'm watching on Facebook, some of these parents trying to deal with their kids and like math. It's so funny, but there's stress there too. So that kind of constant stress, right?
Right.
That means that HPA connection is just like on and on and on and on, right? And we're not pulling back.
Yeah.
We're not rebalancing. So a lot of what we're going to talk about coming up are nutrients that kind of help us to bring that back down, right? Bring that to rebalance us.
Right. And to really help support the brain as well, because we do see that, this chronic stress can start altering even the structure of the brain. And
didn't we see something on that?
Yeah.
Was that like a paper that your husband shared or somebody shared with us?
I think so. I can't remember who shared it. People share, and but that's like a side note. If you see any research or anything like that, we'd love to have it. But we get information from our scientific team. But yes, you do see the brain structures altered, and that can lead to even some of the psychological issues related to chronic stress.
So moving into more of the consequences, right?
Yeah.
So we're talking about a constant HPA connection that's on. There's a lot of excess cortisol floating around that's not coming down. What's the impact? One of the things that I found interesting, which by the way, we have written about in our protocol. Life Extension has a stress protocol that you can check out at lifeextension.com/stressless.
Yes.
You want to try it, Crystal?
See, he's picking on me again, everyone.
I just want you to repeat the URL. Go ahead.
I confessed to him last week that I was having trouble with the stress less part, and I had to practice it. And now he wants to see if I can do it.
All right, go ahead.
lifeextension.com/stressless.
There you got it. You're fine. So in that protocol, there were a couple of sections that I thought we could talk about real quickly. One of them talks about a big consequence of chronic stress is the effect on the circadian rhythm.
Yes.
You have any thoughts about that?
Well, we see with the circadian rhythm, this is kind of the diurnal ebbs and flows. I think that's how you describe it, Dr. Mike.
Yeah.
Where, it basically keeps the brain connected with the body and keeps everything connected to the day and night cycle.
Yeah.
And this is when you look at cortisol, we know that cortisol follows that same pattern, that circadian rhythm, where it's highest in the morning. And so you think about that, the stress response, that increase in epinephrine. Yeah, we need that in order to wake up in the morning.
Get up. You got to start doing something, right? Yeah.
Right. And then at night, you kind of need that cortisol to come down. And that's how you can rest and relax and sleep and fall asleep. And so you start seeing when cortisol is out of balance, then it starts affecting the production of melatonin. And we know that melatonin really drives the circadian rhythm and helps to keep to keep the body in balance, to
In
keep
sync. Yeah.
keep the body in sync. And so now we can connect excess cortisol, or cortisol that's just, this overdrive HPA access, to imbalances with the entire body.
Yeah. And I think to help people understand too, it's not just waking up and going to sleep. I mean, every cell in the human body responds to this ebb and flow of function. And things like sugar management, fat management, energy management, even maybe DNA repair stuff. I've seen some new stuff coming out. All of this is tied into this ebb and flow of function based on, ultimately night and day, but each cell kind of has its own little rhythm.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And chronic stress kind of like wipes that rhythm out. So instead of a nice ebb and flow, it's just like, and that causes dysfunction.
Absolutely. That's such a great point, because we have like the master clock in the brain, and then it controls the clocks, these clock genes all throughout the body that control all of the functions that you mentioned, including blood pressure, including hormone production. So all of this kind of matters when you start looking at this chronic stress disrupting this whole process.
Yeah. So, okay. So that's one of the consequences. Another section in the protocol. Would you like to give the URL again, Dr. Christie?
I think Robson can post it.
Lifeextension.com.
Stress less.
Stress less. I don't know. Like, that stressed you out. Like, saying this, you were talking about this for like a week.
Here what it is, everyone listening, it was the slash and then going straight into the stress.
Slash. Sounds like you had some wine or something. Slash.
Right. Well, that's what it sounded like the first time I was saying it.
Yeah. All right. So that's the circadian rhythm. I found another section because I have the protocol pulled up right here. It's online. You guys can pull it up. Great read. Stress and inflammation. Like, what do you think about that?
I have to tell you. Well, I always try to connect the dots in my mind. And I think, where is this inflammation coming from? And what's interesting, and I think the protocol highlights this, is typically we think of cortisone as being a hormone that suppresses the immune system. When you kind of think about people who are dealing with autoimmune issues, and then they're put on prednisone, or they're put on, these powerful steroids. But we do see that, yes, it can, but it's not quite understood that maybe it can have some pro-inflammatory effects, kind of revving up the immune system, which can cause problems when people are looking at, the immune system sometimes being overactive. Mm-hmm. You can see that cortisol can have an effect, and then ultimately that will lead to excessive inflammation. My other thoughts on it relate to excess glucose. I always like to go back to that, because when you have excess sugar, then you have glycation reactions taking place. And that's when, if sugar's in the bloodstream, that sugar can bind to proteins in the body and make those proteins non-functional. Those proteins can sometimes transform into what we call, or those dysfunctional proteins can transform into what we call advanced glycation end products, which then can, destroy tissues and can increase inflammation, also increase oxidative stress in the body. And all of this, leads to a pro-inflammatory environment in the body. And we know, Dr. Mike, I think I learned this from you. Chronic inflammation is the common denominator to all age-related chronic diseases.
Yeah. I've been teaching that for a long time. And again, I always have to do my little disclaimer. I'm not saying it's not cause effect. It's an association, right? And I've seen this in my own practice many years ago, and even just working with Life Extension, that no matter what you're going through, if you have high levels of chronic inflammation, which are associated with chronic stress, I mean, those kind of things are there, things just don't work as well. I mean, it's harder to treat things, everything from blood pressure to sugar stuff, anxiety, it's all harder. But when you bring down inflammation for people, and in this case, in stress management conversations, bringing down stress, right?
Right.
You actually can see treatments, therapies work better for whatever you're going through. That's just been my experience. You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. You said something interesting there. And I've come to appreciate this more and more. When I was a young medical student and then resident and all that, you know, you think you know everything and you know how to take care of everybody. And you learn very like linear things, like cortisol dampens the immune response, right? Like that. And you understand why that happens. You learn all kinds of physiology of why that happens. But then you get out in the real world and you realize, wait a second, it's so much more complicated than that. You know, cortisol can dampen the immune system, but it also plays an important role in regulation that's not really appreciated until you're out taking care of patients, right? And so I'm kind of glad you said it that way. The human body is extremely complex. Stress response is extreme. I mean, we're breaking it down to flight or flight, tigers, lions, apparently your brother with alligators. I don't understand it. Whatever that is. But it's so much more than that. In each person can be very different in how they respond to certain stressors and stuff, right?
That is so true. I mean, I think that says it all. And so you really kind of have to identify, and we'll talk about this, you know, things that kind of identify how you are responding individually. And sometimes lab testing can be very helpful with that, with kind of seeing where you need to really focus with managing your stress, you know, looking at things like sex hormones, DHEA, progesterone, measuring your cortisol. These are strategies that can really help you to gauge what's going on. Even looking at thyroid. And I know I don't think we were going to talk about this, but it is in the protocol. People who you see a connection between the body's ability to manage stress and hypothyroid issues.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good point. The body is everything's connected, right? You change one part, other parts feel that effect, right? And so a great conversation here. But I'm going to go on to this last section real quickly and mention that stress does affect also something we've talked about a lot. I think we've done several podcasts. I don't know if we've done a live yet on this, but the microbiome in your body, the healthy bacteria, right?
Right. So, and these are, I always say this because it's the trillions of microorganisms that reside in the gut when we look at the gut microbiome and how they interact with the body, how they interact with the brain. There's now we talked about the HPA axis. There's now the gut microbiota brain axis. The gut talks to the brain. Yes.
I'm demonstrating for you.
Thank you. And then the brain talks to the gut. And when you look at those microbes in your gut, those beneficial microbes, they are there producing metabolites such as, you know, short chain fatty acids and just a variety of metabolites and also some neurotransmitters. And then that kind of goes through the vagus nerve to the brain and back and forth. So when we perceive stress, it can alter the composition of our microbes, and it can affect the products that they produce.
Yep.
So what this means is you may have less serotonin produced that can help you to kind of manage some of your stress.
Yeah.
It could mean that, you know, you may And it can affect other parts of the body. We know that the gut microbes are important for intestinal barrier system. And whenever that becomes compromised, then now you see the immune system getting involved. It can affect liver health. I mean, there's so many things that can potentially be impacted in the body when you start disrupting the microbiome. And the fact that stress is affecting the gut, to me, I didn't need to hear or read anything about the HPA axis and the cortisol response. When I read that it can affect gut health, that was it for me. That's enough motivation to kind of make me want to manage my stress better.
Yeah, because one of the other things I teach, and you've heard me say this 1,000 times, you're only as healthy as your gut. Right. So if you're damaging your gut, you ain't gonna be that healthy. So your mom, I think, needs to be a guest on our show because she just commented and said something that I think is really. Don't look at it. Don't look for it.
You see, I'm looking. I'm like,
don't look.
Where is it?
Barbara Moore, the mother of Dr. Crystal Gossard, said, "Try to balance what you can not change."
Can or cannot change.
Yeah, I like that because it's exactly what you guys. We're going to deal with stress. You can't. I guess if you want to live in a bubble, I don't know, but if you're going to live life in this world, stressors are going to happen, and so what we're about to get into now are some of the things that we can do to help kind of like rebalance things in our life. So when that stressor hits, there are things we can do, lifestyle, food, supplements, to help to bring back the calming side of things, right?
Right. And I think a lot of it starts in the brain, how you perceive the stressor. And, one of the strategies that many people use is cognitive behavioral therapy. And that is really retraining your thoughts. Of how you perceive the stress. Now, obviously there are situations where they are so dire where it's, I think about my mom's been getting a lot of shine. I think about my dad, who's a Vietnam vet, and, being in the jungle fighting. How do you even manage stress in that situation? Can you? Is this possible? Yeah. And so it can be a real challenge, but you have to. It's about lifestyle, mindset, and of course, nutritional supplementation.
Yeah, I'm going to read you. So let's move into more managing stress now, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to read you something.
Okay.
And just let me read it. Right.
All right.
It's not so. Okay. You guys might start hearing some horns blowing and stuff. Apparently my neighbor across the street just had a college student graduate.
Oh.
And they obviously are doing social distancing. So the party is now coming down my street and they're blowing horns, showing signs. So that's great. I don't know if you hear it or not, but it's wonderful.
I can hear it.
Oh, that's a big sign. Okay, I'm getting distracted. Okay, I'm going to read you something, Dr. Crystal.
Okay.
I just want to get your take on this. This is managing stress, and it's about meditation or prayer.
Okay.
Yep. It says a review of 45 studies found that meditation lowers cortisol, blood pressure, heart rate, and inflammatory marker, indicating its potential for protecting overall health and specifically cardiovascular health. What do you think about that? Meditation. 45 studies.
Wow. That's jaw dropping. And this is a review of 45 studies.
Oh, they're waving
so
at
they
me.
kind of I'll have to tell you, I probably don't meditate as much as I should. There was a time where I was, meditating. It was more in partnership with my husband to help him manage his stress and his anxiety. And we started doing guided meditations. And I have to say it really helped him. Like I would have to say I manage my stress pretty well, but I do live with a person who is type A personality and always on like 100 all day long.
No, I've never seen that. I don't know what you're talking about right now.
Yes, you know what I'm talking about, and so the meditation, I've seen it firsthand where it has helped him, and I think there are a lot of misconceptions about meditation. People sometimes think that you have to clear thoughts from your head. I've tried like the sitting in silence, but then the thoughts in my head take over.
That lasts about 2 seconds, right?
That's normal. There are many ways to meditate, and it doesn't have to be in complete silence. And so I would encourage all of you out there to just try it out. There are lots of apps. If your mind wanders, recognize that it's wandering and bring it back. Yeah. That's okay.
That's good. So meditation can be very powerful, and whatever that means for you. I think sometimes too, when we say the word meditation, people automatically think like of a certain religion, like Buddhism or something like that. Meditation just means like thinking about things that are true, positive, and just putting your mind on those things, right? It doesn't have to be a religion. It doesn't have to be, it's just focusing on good things, truths in your life. A lot of times when we get stressed out, we go down this pathway and we start believing these lies, these things that really aren't true. And we let stressors freak us out. But you come back and you have to say, wait a second, I have some good kids. I have a good place to live. I got food there are things, right? And I think that's part of meditation as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So that was good. And then if you combine meditation with exercise,
even better.
Yeah.
And so we know that exercise can help with the stress response. It can help with inflammation. It can help you sleep better. You feel better. And it helps to release some of the feel good brain chemicals. And so it's something that, and you've done something that is beneficial for you. Yeah. And sometimes that's a part of helping to manage stress, is doing something that is good, either for yourself or for someone else.
Yeah. You mentioned before that the HPA connection or access isn't just about cortisol. There are other things like adrenalines, as an example, that are released. I always see exercise as something that helps to burn off some of those excitatory chemicals, right? These are chemicals that are released. They're like charged. They're like lightning. They get you all like, freaked out. Exercise burns that off. And I think for me, that's always been a good way to think about it.
That's a really, really good point.
Yeah. So Dr. Crystal knows I have my elliptical trainer. Yeah. I haven't been able to do it for over a month.
Why not?
I hurt my back. I didn't tell you that.
Come on, Dr. Mike.
I hurt my back really bad. Yeah. So I have pain. I have to get, once all this is over, I got to get checked. But I have, so I can't actually do it. So instead I'm doing what I can. I'm swimming in my pool. I walk multiple times every day with my dog. So I do my best, what I can do. And that still is very helpful, but I can't wait to get back on that elliptical trainer because you know how much I love that.
Yes. Well, my husband bought me a sitting bike. So when I'm at my desk now, I bike, burn like 600-700 calories a day, just kind of slowly pedaling the whole time I'm working. So that helps. I have my elliptical. I haven't used it in months.
Well, tell the truth, because you were obsessed with it. It was causing stress in your life. No,
Just for a little while, I had a mild obsession with the elliptical, but those days are long gone.
Yeah. All right. So we gotta keep moving because we've been talking a lot. So basically, Mediterranean diet, plant-based food, wonderful for you. There is something interesting about eating breakfast.
Yes, I saw that study of more than 800 nurses. Nurses out there, if you are listening, kudos to you. We thank you so much for all that you're doing on the front line. And there is a study compared to breakfast skipping. Nurses who ate breakfast regularly, eating breakfast was associated with lower levels of perceived stress, better cognitive function, and fewer job injuries and accidents.
Yeah.
So it makes you feel better and you're actually doing your job better.
Yeah.
So don't skip breakfast.
Yeah. So that's okay. So that's some of the lifestyle stuff. Let's move it into some of the supplements, the nutrients that we've vetted. And again, this is really important, you guys. I want to make sure it's clear that some of the stuff we're going to talk about now has been rigorously vetted by life extension scientists. We have a whole scientific affair and product development team where, there are people that their job, Dr. Crystal, is to just like look at the references and check everything. So this is well-vetted, evidence-based supplementation. And the first one I want to talk about is a group of nutrients called adaptogens. What do you think about those?
Yeah, these are what really help to work on that HPA axis. It helps to restore the body's natural response, and they have been used for years. You see them used a lot in traditional Chinese medicine, but they are great. And what's nice about adaptogens is for different people, they can work in different ways to bring the body back in balance. So, how it may bring me in balance may be different than how it will work with Dr. Mike or anyone else.
Right. Yeah. So the idea of an adaptogen, the way I've always thought of it, is they help us adapt better to stressful situations. So instead of freaking out and going down that road of craziness, right, with the stress, instead you go down the other road where, the stressor's there, I got to deal with it, but okay, I can do this, right? That's kind of like the difference with these adaptogens. And obviously a big one, we have an ebook on this, an ebook on just ashwagandha. That's one of my, did you not know that?
I did not know that. I'll have to check it out.
We have, I think it's at lifeextension.com/spy. No. Oh, I'm going to forget. Forget it. I forgot the URL.
Maybe we can see if
maybe Holly
on the back end, Holly can help. But I saw ashwagandha populate a couple of times in the comments. People love and know ashwagandha.
Well, look at Donna is like, we have 4 exclamation points behind ashwagandha.
Well, it's one of the it's been used in Ayurvedic medicine, one of the oldest holistic medicine systems. And there's good research with ashwagandha as well.
Yeah. So again, I'm going to read. This is from our protocol, lifeextension.com/stressless. Several clinical trials further indicate that ashwagandha is effective for relieving stress and anxiety.
Yeah.
And that's important sometimes I get a little frustrated with my MD colleagues. If I mention ashwagandha to many of them that are very conventional, they'll be like, well, there's no research. That's not true. There's several clinical human published studies and all this stuff. And ashwagandha is a great example of that.
Absolutely. I do want to comment really quickly, Dr. Mike, if you don't mind. Katherine, just to go back to the hunger, she asked, what if you're not hungry in the morning? So we talked about, eating breakfast. Then try it. It doesn't have to be a huge meal. I think
Yeah.
sometimes what we perceive to be breakfast is, the pancakes and eggs and sausage and the bacon and all those things.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
It could be a smoothie or a protein shake or some type of healthy bar. So it's really just something in the morning. You want something that's high in protein.
I think that's a good protein's
fat.
big. Protein's big, yeah. And I think too, there's some registered dietitians and some nutritional researchers who are also looking at this idea of breaking the fast breakfast. And across the board, it is important, but the exact timing when you do that may be not as important as what you're eating. Like that first thing you eat, like, okay, was it Barbara? Yeah, Barbara. No, it was Katherine. Maybe you're not hungry right when you wake up. Maybe it takes you an hour or two, but whenever you're ready to eat, what could be really important is what you're eating at that first moment to break that fast. So,
yes.
and I think most of the research shows protein is big.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I think someone mentioned it could be nuts. Absolutely. Some good nut butter.
That's my breakfast. I do. You know what I do? I do strawberries and almonds and maybe a couple grapes here and there. That's my breakfast. I love it.
Yes.
Anyways, okay. I got hungry all of a sudden.
Okay, so back to ashwagandha. It's great.
It's great. Leave it there. It's great.
I'm telling you, it's a great herb, and the doses can range from 250 even up to 600 milligrams.
Yeah. So that's one of the adaptogens. There's another one, or it's a combination, and there's some good research about this combination. It's magnolia and philodendron. Am I saying that right?
Yes, philodendron, which is a tree. I believe it's known as the cork tree. And
what?
I have random facts in my head.
Cork tree. Did your husband find that for you? Did he stress out all last night to find that?
It's one of the 50 fundamental herbs used in traditional Chinese medicine.
Okay. All right. I have a couple studies here, but I'm not going to go into all of it. At the end of the day, it's been studied in humans, 250 milligrams. Is that what it looks like of the combination?
Yes. 250 milligrams of magnolia plus the philodendron.
Yeah, and so there was a lowering of total what we call cortisol exposure, right? That's that stress hormone. You need it at times, but we don't want it to flood our system. So when we talk about cortisol exposure, it's about like how often are your tissues and cells being flooded, right, with cortisol. So there was a lowering of that kind of like exposure to cortisol, and it resulted in better mood. Yep.
Yes.
Last one, Schisandra.
Yes, Schisandra. I can see pictures of these herbs. You know what happens when I'm training? I'm a clinical corporate trainer, as I mentioned, and I'm always trying to find beautiful images of the herbs to show. So that's how I know these facts, these random facts. But it's been used for centuries to help to manage stress. Also, some of the stress-related fatigue, which we didn't really get into that much, is kind of when you start having adrenal insufficiency, where you have the chronic stress has taken you to a place where you're just wiped out. In the alternative arena, you hear it termed another term, adrenal fatigue. And you see that this can be very helpful with that. And this is when, remember that the cortisol is producing that epinephrine, the adrenaline, to help you wake up in the morning. And you can get to the point where the adrenals are completely wiped out. Yeah. And so you wake up tired. And so this is something that can be helpful.
So, and there are several other adaptogens out there. Rhodiola comes to mind. Yeah. American ginseng, a lot of people like that. So there's several others, but I think at the top of the list for us, for me personally, and I think for life extension too, I think it's ashwagandha. I think that's like a big one for us. So
yeah, I kind of think of it as sort of like a universal.
Yeah. It's nice. All right. So then moving on, there's also combinations of certain fruit extracts and teas. There's one that I found interesting, and of course this is detailed in the protocol as well, is the lychee fruit with green tea. Did you see that one?
Wait, yeah, I'm drinking my green tea.
What kind of cup is that?
My green tea.
Oh, it is flowers. Of course, Dr. Crystal has flowers.
These are the things that help me manage stress.
This is my cup, gray and ugly, and she has flowers on her. Yeah.
I'm drinking green tea. Green tea polyphenols can be beneficial with helping with some of the inflammation that can be involved with chronic stress as well.
Yeah.
And just helping to support cortisol.
Yeah.
That stress hormone.
Yeah. And so one of our favorites that we've talked about a lot is an amino acid found in teas. I think it's found mostly in green tea, but I do think it's found in a lot of other teas too. I don't think it's just green tea, and that's theanine, right?
That is true. Yes, it's found in you do find it in black tea as well. We most commonly associate it with green tea. But yes, theanine, it's an amino acid. It helps to support calming neurotransmitter known as GABA.
There you go.
Yes, we love GABA. And it's calming, but it's not sedating. Which is nice. Want
people that do like people at work do this a lot, right? I think you have some on your desk, but people that do theanine, how they report that it's working, like they don't. I mean, like maybe initially you don't feel something, but about 2 hours later, people say, "I just feel better." Like, things are good. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, even I can notice a difference with theanine in about 45 minutes. When I first started lecturing for life extension, I was like, where's my theanine?
I remember those days.
Yes.
I mean,
very calming. And it's what I like about theanine, it gives me a calm focus. It's like I'm calm, but I'm clear as well.
Which is good because a lot of the prescription drugs for things that deal with stress, you feel better because it just makes you loopy. I mean, let's be honest. You feel everything's fine. You're not quite with it.
True.
So there's a whole list. Again, I'm going to give the URL for the protocol, lifeextension.com/stressless. Check that out. We talk about B vitamins, fish oil, tryptophan, melatonin, saffron. We could talk about saffron. That's one of my
these are all great, Dr. Mike. Yeah. I guess we did too much talking at the beginning.
No, it's okay. I mean, there's so much. Like there's so much to go. But I think I just want to summarize. Stressors are a part of life. Things are different now. So we're dealing with stressors that are constant and consistent, which means we need a constant and consistent strategy for dealing with it because it's just different today. The environment's different today. And so consider things like lifestyle. Consider the meditation. Consider the food you're eating. Consider things like eating breakfast, even if it's something small. There are good clinical trials showing there's positive results with that. Exercise, burn off those energizing chemicals in your body that stress produces, and then consider some supplements like adaptogens. We love ashwagandha. I love the lychee fruit, love theanine, and there's several more that you can check out at lifeextension.com/stressless. You can see it there on the screen. Dr. Gossard, you've been talking a lot today.
But we are going to. There's so much more to say, and so I think we are going to kind of highlight, maybe dive deeper into some of these stress topics throughout the month of May. Yeah.
So every Wednesday, every Wednesday we go on at 3:00. It'll either be myself or Dr. Crystal, and maybe we can take like a section of this. Maybe we'll talk a little bit more about ashwagandha. Maybe we'll talk a little bit more about meditation, etc. So stick around. I mean, they're shorter, 10 minutes or so, but every Wednesday for the rest of the month, we're going to dive a little bit deeper and also make it more personalized for each and every one of us about how to manage stress better.
Right. I actually have a list of personal suggestions. So I'll go over some of my
Dr. Crystal, would you like to give the URL to the protocol one last time?
Sure. It's lifeextension.com/stress. Yes, it's a great protocol. I think it was updated last week.
I think so. Like within the month for sure, right? Yeah.
Yes. So current information, and it's very helpful. Some really good tips.
Yeah. Dr. Crystal, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Dr. Mike. You're so far, but you're so close.
That sounds like a song.
I know.
All right. Tell your family I said hi. Everybody watching, thank you so much. Don't forget to comment, like, share, and just stay tuned because we're going to have every Wednesday, 3 p.m., we're going to be live with Life Extension. Thanks for joining us today. Goodbye.